And so I think everybody's goal in short-term rentals should be owning. But how do you get there? Not everyone has $200,000 to $500,000 to use towards a down payment and design and amenities, And so I think arbitrage or co-hosting is a really great way to save some money to do that. My 10 units at this one apartment complex in Jacksonville, I profit on average $1,800 a month per unit there.
Welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast, the show where we teach you how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want.
Doctor!
Now, here's your host, Dr. 𝗪𝗪𝗀𝗍𝗍.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Physicians and Properties Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. 𝗪𝗪𝗀𝗍𝗍, and I am so excited to have Dr. Jessica Katz on the podcast. She is an OBGYN turned real estate investor who has built an awesome short-term rental business. She now helps busy professionals, including physicians, break into short-term rentals with systems that don't consume their life. Her and her husband, Jordan, host STR Properties, and they're also parents of 4. They create incredible guest experiences, and I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today, Dr. Katz. How are things going in Cleveland, Ohio?
Things are pretty good, besides 3 feet of snow that won't melt. But we are
need
good.
it.
Yeah, it's been crazy. My kids had like 6 snow days this year so far.
Oh, wow.
But they're all at school today, and we had a great weekend, and I'm really looking forward to this podcast. So thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Very excited to have you on the podcast. We need 3 feet of snow here in Colorado, so send that our way. That would be awesome. It's been the least snowy year ever. And that's not being dramatic. It really has. The snowpack is terrible. So we need some more so we can get some skiing going. But excited. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, excited to have you here. Do you mind just, telling us a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey into medicine and kind of where you are now? I know you have a really interesting story of how you got into real estate and short-term rental. So excited to hear more about that.
Absolutely. It's just been a crazy 4 years. Where I am today compared to 4 years ago is just boggles my mind every time I think about it. So I live in Cleveland, Ohio now, but that's where I was born and raised. My mom was one of 7 kids, and her father was a doctor, and half of her siblings ended up being doctors, and a lot of my cousins are doctors. Her father actually was one of the pioneers of pediatric radiology and have a lot of very well-known physicians in my family. And since I was 5, that's what I was going to do. I was going to be a doctor. I decided that radiology was probably not what I wanted to go in, but I, from the very earliest age, once, I was going to be a doctor, and there was nothing that was going to change my mind. And so, I worked hard in high school to get into college. I went to the University of Michigan. I got through their pre-med program and went to school in Des Moines, Iowa for med school. I graduated in the top 10% of my class, working really, really, really hard. Decided to go into OBGYN. Went to an inner city Chicago program, Mount Sinai in Chicago. I dragged my now husband, with me to move to Chicago with me. And we had our first child there. And it was just always our dream to move back to Cleveland. My parents are here. My brother's here. His parents are here. A lot of, family and connections are here. So it was just amazing for me to be able to get a job where I had wanted to be a doctor my whole life. And so, we moved back to Cleveland, and the first 2 years of my attending job was awesome. I was making a difference in my patients' lives, and I would run into someone on the street or a restaurant, and just that's what I dreamed of my whole life of doing. And I was performing surgeries myself, and I was doing, everything was great until it wasn't. And the very short story is that suddenly someone decided that I was not a good doctor. And there were some things that happened, and happy to go into a little bit more about that because I think it shocks a lot of people that this could happen. But basically, it turned into a nightmare where I was, after following guidelines, there was a bad outcome, which happens to us all. And I was put on proctoring that turned into, a National Practitioners Data Bank report for being on proctoring for more than 30 days and being called, a dangerous doctor. And it just turned into a nightmare where I didn't think I was going to be able to practice medicine again. I ended up having to move to another area of Ohio for a little bit because I couldn't get a job in my hometown where I, dreamed of practicing my whole life. And we were fortunately able to move back a year later as I took a job at a hospital an hour away, but shift work that allowed me just those 7 times a month to drive, that hour for that 24-hour shift and back. But it lit a fire inside of me that I wanted to start something that nobody could take away from me. And so, that really led me on my real estate journey.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And really, really sorry to hear about that experience, but it sounds like that did help kind of set you up to understand like, hey, my job as a physician is something that I don't have full control of, and I need to have these protective measures in place. And you've done that with your short-term rental business. Sorry to hear that experience for you. What were some other things that you learned going through that experience, or anything else that you'd like to share for someone else who may be in a similar situation to what you went through at that time? I know it's probably difficult to talk about that, but I think it's helpful and beneficial for folks.
Yeah, of course. Talking about this now 6.5 years after it happened, I feel fine to talk about it. I want to, because I think this area of medicine isn't shared enough. But at the time, I honestly felt my life was over. I remember crying every single day, not understanding how this could have happened to me. The hospitals have rules. Like, how could this have happened? Why isn't anyone speaking up for me? Like, why? Like, how has this been allowed to happen? It just didn't seem real. I asked my husband every day, like, will I be happy again? I remember talking to God a lot, asking, for help. And I just remember wishing at that time, like, I wish there was someone that I could go to that has experienced this before, or, can just tell me that, like, I'm going to be okay. There's other alternatives to, medicine if I want that. And so, I want people to know that there are some very bad people inside of medicine. I think there are a lot of dangerous doctors, not even a lot. I think there are dangerous doctors out there. I think that there are people that probably shouldn't be practicing medicine. But to do some of the things that happened to myself, and then that I've been sharing this with other people, hearing their stories, this happens way too often. And it happens against doctors by nurses. But it really happens within the medical community with physicians doing this to physicians. And a lot of people think it's men doing this to women. A lot of the time it's women doing this to women. And it's just, it's shocking. It's shocking what people do to each other. But it's also been shocking to me of the people that just sit by watching this happen. Yeah. At the time this was happening to me, there was this maternal fetal medicine doctor that, we were professionally colleagues. Like, I went, hard cases, I got his advice. And when this was happening to me and I told him what they were upset with me about or said that I supposedly did, he's like, you did everything right. Like, I will go and I will tell them, and this is insane. And how are they saying this? And he never did. And I followed up with him and I asked him, have you done this yet? Because this is really taking effect. They're talking about terminating me. All this stuff is happening. And he just basically said he wasn't willing to risk his career to help me, even though that was the right thing to do. And just the amount of people that, saw this happening. And I remember being like, isn't there anything you could say? Isn't there anything you could do? Like, please help me, anything. And it was just like, no, sorry. And that was just really, really shocking to me. Part of this being put on proctoring, I was assigned to these 2 doctors, and they, came into this like, this is BS. I can't believe you have to do this. We heard what happened. Like, we're gonna, you'll do the cases with us. We'll sign off. Like, everything will be okay. Like, you're a great doctor. And at the end, one of them would not sign me off. And, it was very shocking and surprising. And, their reasoning for not, it came down to the last hysterectomy we did together, which was one of the hardest ones that I've ever done in my life. And he just wasn't sure that I could do it on my own. And I said, well, how would that be different than if I called in for help, just like I've seen you do 100 times? Why is it okay for you to call in the urologist? Why is it okay for you to call in the colorectal surgeon, but I can't? And so, I think that it shocked me what doctors we do to each other, and how important it is to, I don't want people losing their jobs, but there has to be something where you stand up for what's right. And so, so that's really, what that taught me. And listen, I think this is a real estate podcast, but I just want everyone listening to know that I'd be more than happy to be that person for somebody that if something is very unfair, they feel like their life is falling apart, I'll just be there to listen and give whatever advice I can. But I would have paid anything to have that kind of support when I was going through this, because I felt alone. I felt like not only was I not going to practice medicine again, but could I afford my house? Could I afford everything that I sacrificed, years and years and years to have a type of life that I envisioned? And that was all, at that time going away. So what ended up happening was, a hospital outside of Cincinnati in a very little farm town, they gave me a chance. And I will thank God every day for that chance. I was able to move there. I was able to collect my board cases so that I could become board certified. And I will always, thank them for giving me that chance. And also the hospital system that I'm with now. They, gave me a chance. I am indebted to them for allowing me and my family to move back to our hometown. But, I will tell you, as happy as I am to be able to practice medicine again, it has never been the same. It is something that I don't have passion for. I don't love it. I am still scared. I'm scared every day going into work, and that's not how I want to live my life. I am scared that if I didn't even do anything wrong the first time, what happens if something goes wrong? Because it will. It happens to us all. If someone doesn't smile at me, I think, oh my gosh, are they mad? Did they do something wrong? It's constantly I'm overanalyzing every medical decision I made during a shift. And so the love of medicine really was taken away from me from that experience. And so that's really when I decided that I needed to start something that I could do so that if God forbid I lost this job, I could still help pay the mortgage. I could still put braces on my kids' teeth. I could still, do, everything that we planned. Because I think, we go to school for so long, but besides being a physician, there's really not that much within medicine, or even outside that we can do, especially for, the salary range that, we want to have. So I was on call one night and I, was waiting for a delivery, and I saw an Instagram ad about this thing called rental arbitrage. And I had no idea what that meant, but basically I clicked on the ad, and it was a program developed by Brian Page, who he was one of the founding guys of rental arbitrage. And what that means is that you are leasing a property with the owner's permission, furnishing it, and running it as your own Airbnb. And so after you pay the lease, the utilities, the cleaning fee, the expenses, whatever you're left over is your profit. And so I thought that was interesting. I hear on the commercial, the ad, that you can add $10,000 a month to, whatever you're doing. And it's, part-time stuff. And I don't know. I just was like, this is it. I have to do it. And I remember my husband when I told him that I wanted to do this, and he was just like, what are you talking about? Why would you do this? That doesn't, it doesn't make sense. Even watching me for the last couple of years, what I went through and what I was he still was just like, I don't know, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But if you really want to do it, then, go ahead. So I bought the course, I watched it, and I did every single thing that it said. And so I got 77 no's from owners pitching this idea of doing this before I got my first yes.
Wow. And
I just was not going to give up. I was going to make this work. And so I started off in Cleveland, where I'm from, and found someone that had been using a property management company to Airbnb. It was on Zillow because he was sick of it. He just wanted constant rent, and he didn't want to rely on this property management team. So, I convinced him to allow me to do this. And so he wanted me to take both sides of his duplex. So I was getting 4 bedrooms on this side, 4 bedrooms on that side. Half the stuff was already there. I just added my decorative take on it and added some stuff. And then, that went live. Learned a ton opening an Airbnb in January in Cleveland is not prime season to do that, but by the summer months and I say we, Jordan is, stepping up and helping me, with stuff too. Yeah. We start seeing the money come in. It's like, wow, this actually can work. And so then we got another duplex a few streets away. We started then using those profits to then buy our first property. So we bought a 6-bedroom cabin in rural Ohio on 52 acres with fishing and swimming ponds and trails, and turned it, into this experience with a sauna and a hot tub and a cold plunge and a game room. And it's just awesome. And then after that, we kept going. I learned about 0% credit cards. And that's really awesome. When arbitrage business took off. I used a company called Fund and Grow. I'm sure there's a lot out there, but that's the one I used at the time. And it helped us get like over $200,000 of 0% credit cards. And so then that's how I was able to furnish 10 apartment units in Jacksonville, Florida. And at that time, I was getting really good at analyzing to know exactly how much revenue I should anticipate and whether that deal was good or not. So I felt really good going in the deal. I have not been wrong on an analysis. I really have honed in on that skill, whether it's to buy, whether it's a co-hosting deal or an arbitrage deal, it's all the same analysis. And so those 10 went so well, they offered us 5 more. I went into Naples and got 5. Let's see. So then there's 20 in Florida, another 5 in Jacksonville. So we have 25 units in Florida. And then I got 2 houses in Pittsburgh to arbitrage, a 4-bedroom and a 5-bedroom. And then again, just use it. So within 7 months, I think the credit cards were all paid down, right? So then it's just profits. And then we used mainly all of the profits to buy our newest property, which is a 6-bedroom, 6 to 7 bedroom beach house in St. Augustine, Florida. And this is really awesome. Thank you. This is really the deal that I think is going to set us up for all of our future investing. It really is a home run deal in terms of, the tax loophole, using the tax loophole, we are going to be able to get $300,000 of taxes back, which is, insane amounts to get back. We're expecting, after we did the renovations and everything that we did on the house, we talked to a few lenders, and just going on the market research, we're going to be able to pull between $750,000 to $1 million in a cash out refi if we want to pull everything. And then we're going to be cash flowing $80,000 to $125,000, after paying for everything on this house. And so it's just a dream come true that, I can do this. In the meantime, also, we have partnered with 7 owners to co-host their properties for a variety of reasons. Some of them is just they want to invest without doing it themselves. Others that they were not successful doing it themselves. And we, pride ourselves in every market we're in, we're at the top of listings in terms of revenue. And so we're doing something right. And so people, want to use our, want to use our knowledge in those things and just run it better than they could. And also a few other people have decided to allow us to co-host because they just weren't really happy with their current property management company. They're just, treated as 1 in 100 in a market and not marketing and not, doing the revenue management, the optimization. And so, And so we have built in 3 years a 40-unit portfolio that
is amazing.
That we have built from scratch. So it's been an insane journey and really cool. And when I think about where I was 6 years ago, it's just it's a dream come true. It really is.
That is amazing. Wow. What an incredible journey and story. And, I can't imagine going from that traumatic experience that you had in medicine to now building this 40-unit portfolio in such a short period of time. But it just really shows, like, if you are willing to commit and take action, you're probably one of the few people who've actually completely finished that course that Brian Page had, and then actually took action on it, and then really scaled, which is amazing. I want to step back real quick for a minute. That first duplex, that first property that you guys arbitraged, what was it like when you first received that distribution or that cash flow from that property and you realized, like, hey, I made this outside of the hospital? What was that like for you? What did that feel like when you first got that distribution?
I just felt so proud. I was so proud to actually show people that this was going to work. Jordan, although wasn't that supportive at the beginning, when he saw how dedicated I was to this, he, was on board and really, was wanting this to work. But both of our parents were like, what are you guys doing? This, really doesn't make any sense. Like, are you sure you don't want to just, take extra shifts at the hospital, or, why not, do something that you already know how to do? And so just being able to, see that positive balance in our account for the business, it just showed that, all the hard work was worth it. And more than that, it allowed me to sleep better at night, right? So when you're always worried that you could lose your job, and then what? And you have nothing else, it's hard to sleep. And I know that's probably not just for me. It's for a lot of people. It's for the person I know that, was terminated because they wanted to fill her spot with a nurse practitioner. It's, for those that work so hard and never see their kids. And, the thought of dropping down to see them more means, not being able to pay for the things they want. I mean, that's hard. It's hard to sleep at night when you feel like that. And so once I started seeing the positive cash flow in our account and seeing that this actually works, that's when I was able to sleep better at night. And it just put this load off of my chest in terms of, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be, it's freedom, right? It's freedom in some capacity. And I think that every physician, everyone listening to this should strongly think about, how can I have some degree of passive income to come in and give me some freedom? And essentially that starts with like partial financial freedom, then financial freedom, then time freedom, then mental freedom is kind of how I look at it. And then, ultimately it's like giving freedom. Like, you're making so much profit, you can just give and donate to anything you could ever want. And that's the ultimate goal, I think. And I want to talk about kind of the 3 entry paths to short-term rentals, or maybe like an on-ramp for busy physicians. And so you mentioned rental arbitrage. I think there's kind of multiple entry points into short-term rentals. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we have like rental arbitrage, we have co-hosting. So rental arbitrage, you lease that property from someone, typically as a long-term rental, and then you go ahead and operate that as a short-term rental, and then you make the profit in the middle. You make the delta, and that's your cash flow that you get from that property. Then there's buying a property as a short-term rental, or converting an existing property from a long-term rental to a short-term rental. And then, of course, co-hosting would be you take over the kind of property management of that short-term rental. Who do you think each one of those is best for, or who do you think arbitrage may be best for, and who should not do it? Here's a quick reality check. If you are a physician building wealth through real estate, your biggest asset likely isn't your rental portfolio, it is your income. Financial freedom may only be a few properties away, but disability, that can wipe out the plan overnight if you're not protected. Leverage RX helps physicians get the right, true own occupation disability insurance, so your lifestyle, your family, and your investing plan stay intact no matter what. Go to leveragerx.com/physicians and properties. That's leveragerx.com/physicians and properties, and protect the thing that funds everything.
Good question. And I think you summarized those perfectly. I think that rental arbitrage has changed a lot in the 3.5 years since I started. 5 years ago to 3.5 years ago, it was amazing. You could put a bed in a room, you could put a painting above that bed, and it would just sell out every night, right? The amount of change that has happened in the Airbnb, and even, I shouldn't say Airbnb, the short-term rental space over the last, 2-3 years is crazy. In a lot of markets, you have to be the best. You have to be so competitive. You have to bring amenities that nobody offers, or at least match them, in order to succeed. And so it's a really different market. But there is still a lot of money to be made in the rental arbitrage space. I would say that the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to own properties, right? Because you are building equity. It is your decision, if you are renting it out or not. With arbitrage, it's a little stressful in the way that the owner could decide, next year I don't want to lease to you, or I'm going to sell, or, the neighbors complained a little bit too much about the noise. So like, we're not going to release. And so I have a hard time basing financial decisions on what I made the previous year because I have no idea how it's going to be next year. My 10 units at this one apartment complex in Jacksonville, I profit on average $1,800 a month per unit there.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's someone's salary, really. But that could be all gone next year. So how do I, plan for the future based off of that? And so I think everybody's goal in short-term rentals should be owning. But how do you get there? Not everyone has $200,000 to $500,000 to use towards a down payment and design and amenities, And so I think arbitrage or co-hosting is a really great way to save some money to do that. What I have done is I'm very excited to offer this because I think this is an amazing group of people that would really do amazing in the arbitrage way. High school and college students. Because, if their parents help them get these 0% credit cards and these deals are analyzed in such a way, knowing that you are paying this back within the 12 months, you're just going to be cash flowing after that. And so I'm not saying get 40 units, but if I'm in high school, you can build a 6-figure business doing this with 5 apartments.
Wow.
Right? And with just a couple hours of time. And so I have a few people signed up already, but I am so excited to teach high schoolers how to do this so that by the time school starts in the fall, they will have, 2 to 5 listings set up, ready to go, automated enough to be able to, do this for really a couple hours a week. I feel like when I was in high school, I'd rather be doing this than working other jobs, taking up more time and making less money. But you could really be making with just 3 to 5 units, $5,000 a month. Not many high school or even college students can do that. And so I really like arbitrage for that type of person. Someone who probably wouldn't be able to get access to 0% cars themselves, but with family help, that's an option. And I don't think a lot of things look better than starting a 6-figure business, for resumes, as well. And so I think that's awesome. I think it's for people that can have access to 0% cards. I really don't think arbitrage is good using your own money. I think your own money can be better served elsewhere, such as just, saving it towards a down payment if you really want to go the real estate route. But leveraging these 0% credit cards, I think arbitrage can win pretty big that way. Co-hosting is also really great because you're not starting with any of your own money. It's just your time, your sweat equity, right? But I don't know too many people that want to hand off their property to someone without experience. And I think there's a lot of programs out there, groups you can be in to teach you how to do it. So I'm not saying it's impossible to do it. I just think when you have had experience managing your own properties before, whether through arbitrage or, owning, then you have the credibility. Then people, come to you and see your success and want you to replicate that for them. And so co-hosting is a great way to increase the revenue of your business. People ask for 15 to 20% of total revenue in terms of the payment for that service. And so, again, bringing your sweat equity, your time into that, but not any of your own money. So that's a very good way to scale.
That's amazing. That was such a good answer. And I really wish I learned about that in high school. I can't imagine how that would have changed my life and my trajectory, having known about arbitrage and some of these really cool strategies for getting started and investing in high school. It should be a class. We should really be learning in high school how to do our taxes and how to save money on taxes and how to invest in real estate and how to start a business and all these really, really tangible and tactical things that can set you up for success. So I love that you are doing that and sharing that. I wanted to ask you about deal analysis. So you mentioned that deal analysis is really kind of your jam and crushing it from a deal analysis perspective. What are some things that you look for in a deal? And then what are some of the biggest deal killers when evaluating a potential short-term rental?
So I'm trying to think of the best answer for this because we could talk about this for 2 hours or more.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend that I came up with this, super new deal analysis technique. I'm going off, the experts in the field, the Kenny Bedwells, the John 𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗍s. analyze the exact same way, as they do. I have my spreadsheet that I put in everything that I'm looking for. And I'm really spending up to 10 hours sometimes just, getting this data and analyzing it. And when I make a decision, whether it's should I try to get this co-hosting deal, or should I do this arbitrage, or even, the houses that I own, it's analyzed the same way, right? I am trying to see realistically how much revenue this certain property will make. And when I go through a deal, I feel good about it, because I'm not like, oh, I hope it'll get $100,000 in revenue. It should, because it's so cool and I love it. I go based off of the numbers of the competitors. And so, I'm comparing like houses or apartments. I'm finding the properties in a specific area that my house that I might want to buy or arbitrage or co-host, how their competitors perform. And so, I end up with 3 different numbers. The lowest is like, okay, no problem getting this. Middle is like, yeah, I think we can get that. And the highest is like, well, if we, do everything amazing and perfectly, then it can reach this. And so if I'm happy with that lowest number, then I go with the deal. And so, so hours are spent on going through each property. So if I'm looking, for that beach house that I decided this was like a home run deal in terms of like, I can't pass this up. I'm looking for all the other 6-bedroom beach houses in, maybe 15 miles, right? And so the house that's for sale, I'm comparing, is my kitchen as new as this? Do I have as many bathrooms? Do I have the pool? And so I'm looking at, okay, the top 5 listings. What do they have? Oh, they have the pool. Oh, they're modern. Oh, they have a game room. So it's like, I know what I have to do and what I have to add to compete at that level. And so if I'm like, well, I really don't have the budget to put in a pool, what are houses that I can compete with making? And if I'm okay with those numbers, then that's still a good deal. But yeah, so when I look, for the cabin, for the beach house, for the properties I've found for clients, I'm looking for a lot of things. But one thing that I really want to look for is something that nobody can copy from me. So this house in St. Augustine, it had a 1,700 square foot roof that no one was utilizing then. But I'm like, oh my gosh, what happens if I put a bar up here? What happens if I put mini golf up here? What happens if I put these like canopies that are overlooking the ocean, because we're second row, but we're higher than the house in front? So the third floor and the rooftop have unobstructed views of the ocean. Like, someone can copy my game room. Someone can copy, my decor, I guess, but like no one can copy this rooftop, right? And so I really like to find properties that are special, that, guarantee that you'll be in the top. And so yeah.
Oh, sorry. I don't mean to interrupt there, but I was really hoping that you would say that, because I think that we're no longer in the days where, like you mentioned, you could just, have a bedroom, put a bed in there, put the painting of like the musk ox that everybody seems to have in their Airbnb, and cash flow well. You have to really have those unique things that stand out. And you also need to do that analysis of the other homes in your area, that secret shopping, if you will, and see, hey, what is everybody else offering and how can I exceed that? That is the best way that you're going to be able to feel comfortable from a due diligence perspective on, is this house going to be able to cash flow to the numbers that I need it to? And I think that it's really important to have that unique kind of Instagrammable perspective where folks are going to be, sharing this home with other people and posting on their social media. And then you're going to get more and more bookings that way as well. So I'm really, really glad that you said that. Sorry to interrupt you. Is there anything else that you want to add from that perspective?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, that's 100% right. I don't want people thinking that like don't get the house if they, if they don't have anything, if they don't have one special thing, you can make the property special as well. I found a house in Bradenton, Florida for a client. They're like, I have money, I want to invest, I want to use the tax loophole, but like I don't want to buy the wrong property. So that's where, I came in and I found this. And does every deal in Bradenton work? No, but there will be properties in every market that most likely will. And so at that house, there was no special view. There was nothing that nobody, people could copy the whole thing. But bringing all the amenities together is special as well. And just the when people look at like what your cash on cash return will be because of the house, like it just sometimes the numbers work even if you don't bring anything insanely special, that the neighbor down the street can't do. But when I was analyzing that, the house just seemed like such a great price. And so when I started analyzing, I thought, okay, every single house making over $200,000 has a pickleball court. So if this house makes sense, we have to have room for the pickleball court, or else it's not going to work. And so that is one of the things that we added. What I suggested adding on top of that was an outdoor movie theater, because no one else in that area had that. And that's a very inexpensive thing, less than $2,000, to add something like that. And an outside bar that's, painted coral and has the logo on it. And it just is something, fun that not everyone has. And so, so that deal is going to pencil out really great for that investor. And then he was able to buy it in Q4 and spend enough time in the house where he was he could say, use the tax loophole, that he was the one, doing the most work on that. But starting in January, we started co-hosting for him because he just really, didn't want to be involved in that. So that's going well. We're on track to make $250,000 on a $900,000 house. And and he's going to get a bunch of tax benefits, and it's going to appraise for 3 to 5% a year. And there's debt pay down. So I would call that a home run deal as well. And then the last thing I want to say about that is my apartments are not special. I have 25 apartments that I arbitrage in different areas. And, what makes it special is just going all out in design, right? So I'm on top because for that 2-bedroom apartment, I am making it as good as the other 2-bedroom apartments on the market. I chose an apartment complex with an awesome pool that's new, with the gym, so I can offer these amenities without having to pay for them myself. And so I think there's a lot of things that you can do with, 2-bedroom apartments, 3-bedroom apartments, houses that don't necessarily have to break the bank either. We're talking about adding peel and stick wallpaper to living room walls, behind the bedrooms, putting benches or chairs in front of beds, adding an air fryer to the kitchen, just like, making things modern and new with a cool design does the trick really well. And so, as I've said, for arbitrage, they teach you that you should look for a profit of $1,000 per unit, that you have to make it worth it. And so we're, at $1,800 for, 20 units. That's pretty good. And that's just based off of, wanting to elevate the design. And you can either hire a designer to do that for you if you don't feel comfortable doing that, or, just trying to look at, for that market, the top 2-3 bedroom, whatever unit is, how are they designed? And then kind of just trying to match that level. So it doesn't have to be we're adding pickleball courts to be successful.
That is great. So my wife is going to listen to this podcast. She loves design. She loves short-term rentals. We had a few short-term rentals. She's going to listen to this. She's going to be ready to get back into the game.
I love it. I love it. It's so interesting using my brain for this, because in medicine, there's creativity, but not that much. We're following guidelines. We're following protocols. We're not really, able to be creative like this, but like this just has my creative juices flowing. I love design. I love figuring things out. When something happens with a guest, it's like fun for me to figure out a solution. So it really is nice having this outlet as well.
That is great. I love that. Well, let's move forward to talk a little bit about systems, because I think some docs listening to this are probably like, man, you mentioned a couple hours a week and that sounds awesome. How can I do that? So do you mind kind of walking us through your systems? What do you automate, delegate? What do you personally kind of own as the host? What does that look like for you?
Sure. So, okay, everyone listening, I do not spend 2 hours a week when I have 40 units. I would say, I would say that I did not feel like I needed help until I had more than 10, right? But someone just getting into this wants to make, an extra 5,000-ish, a month, 5 units. You could do this for a couple hours. You really can. And so we try to automate whatever we can. And again, this isn't new. This is what a lot of people do. But, we automate a bunch of messages that go out when the guest books a couple days before check-in to know what to expect, get the check-in instructions, all of that stuff, a reminder a few hours before they check in. We added a message like the next day, like so day 2 of their stay, just to give them an opportunity to bring up any issues that they might be having so that we could fix it then, instead of finding out that they weren't really having a good experience because, the disposal wasn't working or, a blind fell out. Like, let us fix it while you're there so that we can get that 5-star review. And so that's really helped us do that. And then checkout instructions. And then a day later, asking them for a review, reminding how vital it is for our business. And so that helps a lot. We have the locks, we have the cameras that are automated. We have price labs to do the revenue, but we have moved a little bit more than that now. So I had to create a team. And again, like, I am not here to say I have found the perfect solution. I'm still working 2 hours a week. That is still a work in progress, but we are moving towards being able to do that. So on my team now I have a head cleaner, and she is finding the teams wherever we are. And so she is interviewing, hiring, giving them the checklists. She is the contact person so that I don't have to be. So that person, she was my cleaner in Cleveland. And, I said, I'm expanding to Florida. Like, will you help me find a team there? And that just kind of was so successful that's all I do now is, so I have a head cleaner that helps me find the teams. And we have the same checklist in Jacksonville than we have in Naples, so we have in Pittsburgh, so that every clean should be the same. And so we have, we want pictures, we want videos after every clean to ensure that it was done correctly, but also have proof that it was clean, because sometimes there are guests that will try to say things to get money back. And, we need proof against that. Price Labs is awesome. It really helps. But at this rate, we wanted a revenue manager, someone on our team. And so we have a revenue manager that will use Price Labs, but tweaks it all the time. And Jordan on Sundays will go in himself and tweak it for any remaining days in the next 2 weeks to, decrease it by 3% every hour until it books, because we think that increases our views on the algorithm. Who knows? On these VRBO and Airbnb sites. But so that's what we do for pricing. We have virtual assistants. So they really are who answers guest messages. I will look at some of these messages from time to time to make sure that the right thing is being said. Sometimes not. And so that is when we decided a couple months ago to hire an operational manager. And so this person is US based. He has been amazing. He lives in Seattle, so he's not even from Cleveland. And he is really going to be in charge of letting us step away even more, interacting with the virtual assistants even more, so that I don't have to come in and correct anything. But really, from your 10 or less units, you can be okay with just the automation tools, the Ring camera, the Schlage locks. You find a cleaner by yourself or on Turno. You use Price Labs, and then, maybe do a little bit learning yourself on how to make sure that, the right pricing is going out there. But that's really it. The other thing that we do is we have a handyman. And what's perfect is when the cleaner and the handyman are married. That is the perfect. But I have 3 cleaners, 3 handymen on my list of people, because people are busy. They go on vacation, they have lives. And so having these people on your team beforehand really decrease the stress of what is going to happen. Because I used to just get so upset when things would happen. Oh my God, a guest said this. Oh my God, this got dirty. We have to replace this. That is going to happen. It's a part of business. It's going to happen. It's okay. It's expected. But then knowing how to deal with those things makes a huge difference. And so, so I have a team now, but I think as you're getting started, and especially when you're buying your own, you can handle 3 properties yourself. You really can, with the automation tools and just having a little knowledge on, how short-term rentals work.
That was such a value add segment for folks who are listening to this. Go back and listen to that, because you dropped so many great tools to use, so many ways that you can set this up to be, much more automated, to kind of buy back your time regardless of how you're doing this and how many units you have. That was awesome, Jessica. Thanks for that. Well, let's go ahead and kind of get started wrapping things up here. But I wanted to ask just a couple closing questions. I guess one would be, what is the most underrated amenity that you've seen that tends to either boost bookings or increase revenue?
I would just say a nice design. Really. I mean, I have helped people, turn, an Airbnb around with, again, the 𝗵𝗆𝗀𝗀 wallpaper and some accent pillows. Also a really good photographer. You cannot take pictures of your short-term rental with your iPhone. You just can't. I really value these professional photographers for sure. They have a very special way of shooting that I could never do on a phone. And I don't even think real estate photographers could do. You really need, great photography. But the number one amenity, no matter what the market is a good design.
It's a great answer. I love that. Well, Jessica, if a physician feels stuck right now, what's the one move that you would want them to make this week to get started in real estate?
I think a good first thing to do is to write it down. Write down what your goals are and write down what it's going to take to get there. And, I think there are just so many avenues of real estate, right? Like on all your podcasts, you have people from all over doing different types of things. And so it's finding like what you want to start with. And not that you can't change later, but you can't, when I hear about your residential homes, it's like, oh, well, maybe I'll do that too. But it's like, you can't do everything at once. Get good at one thing. And, you can stick with that. You can, get really good at that and then go, do something else, but just don't try to do too many things at once. And so whatever you decide is the niche you want to start with, how are you going to get there? And, if you have, some money saved, then, you go that route. If you have zero, I started out with really close to zero. I had $100,000 plus of lawyer fees trying to figure this out for me. I really, didn't have anything to start. But you figure out a way. You are you do extra shifts at the hospital. I mean, I know someone that was, doing Instacart or DoorDash or, trying to flip things from TJ Maxx. I mean, like, I just don't think you're miserable enough or you don't want it enough unless you're going to do uncomfortable things. And, calling 77 people and being hung up on and being yelled at and telling me I was wasting their time, like, that is not something that I wanted to do. But I wanted out of my current situation so badly. And so I think the first step is like, what are you willing to do and what can you do now? And so, with the 0% cards, different ways now compared to even 5 years ago of ways to make extra money, I just think that there are no excuses, anymore to get started.
I agree. Yeah, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable if you're trying to design like the life of your dreams and the career of your dreams. And so you certainly embody that. Jessica, how can folks reach out to you if they want to know more, if they want to potentially work with you? How can they reach out?
So I'm on Instagram as Dr. Jess Airbnb, right? Even though it's not just Airbnb, it's short-term rentals, but that's the Instagram handle there. And message me. I also, we can be reached at our company's website, jk2properties.com. We list our services that we offer. So we really help a lot of people with different things. If you, from the full on, like find me a property, tell me how to design it, work with the design team for me, find a team for me, like for everything you want. I have clients that just want us to analyze if they can turn their already long-term rental into a short-term rental, what that revenue would look like. I have people that want help understanding the revenue part, how we, how we even set numbers and how to even work price labs. And then I've had a few boot camps of arbitrage, people wanting, to learn arbitrage. So whatever you think that you want to learn about, I'm happy to discuss that, talk, help you. And again, like I said at the beginning, like, reach out to me if you just like want to talk about what's happening at work. Like it just, this happens way more than we realize. It really does. As I started being more comfortable talking about my experience and what happened, there's a lot of people that don't believe it, right? They're like, how could that happen? You must have done something. I mean, even my family members were like, what did you do? This doesn't make sense. But there are so many people out there where unfair things have happened to them and they have, lost people's respects. They've lost their jobs. They've had to move. They haven't been able to find another job. I mean, this happens all the time. And so, yeah, if you're listening to this and understand what that feels like, I am more than happy just to be someone that you talk that through with also.
That's great. That is super valuable. And we'll be sure to include those links in the show notes as well for folks who want to reach out to you. With that, we'll go ahead and wrap things up. It's been Dr. Jessica Katz and Dr. Alex 𝗪𝗠 with another episode of the Physicians and Properties Podcast. Signing off. Hey, real quick, if you're still listening to this, I'm assuming you got value from it. So I need your help specifically. My 2-year vision with this podcast is to help 100,000 physicians learn how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want. There are 2 main ways that a podcast grows. One is through ratings and reviews, and the other is word of mouth. If you can please leave me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as send this to 1 to 2 friends that you think would get value from it, we can reach the physicians that we want to reach. Thanks in advance, and talk to you on the next episode. Please note that the information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or medical advice. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host and the guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.